Newport City Radio, Newport's official radio station, The Scissors Won't Cut Jam with Gareth, and I'm joined by people who are taking photos of each other. What are you doing?
Good morning, Gareth. How are you? Okay.
Good morning. Yeah,
Me
I'm
and
all right.
Gareth got this little in joke where each morning we say good morning to each other.
Yes,
so,
it seems like it when I
good,
see you.
Good evening, Gareth.
Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, Gareth.
We'll have to start doing good evening ones.
Evening, Gareth.
So, who have we got? If you go from left to right and explain who you are and what your role is.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Collingbourne. I'm the managing partner of Collingbourne Henna Law and one of the members of the Newport Independent Party. My job is to be the secretary and treasurer of the party, and I've dealt with all the registration formalities of the party.
Okie dokie.
Okay, my name is Chris Evans. I'm the Independent Group Small Business and Economic Development spokesperson. And of the new party, which is currently being registered, I'm the General Secretary.
Right, okay.
I'm Kevin Whitehead. I'm the current leader of the Newport Independent Party. Very proud leader, actually. I hope we'll see a sea change across Newport and its wards. And I'm heavily supported and relying on the two fellas to my left.
Okay, so why set up a political party for Newport?
To be quite quick, I don't want to talk. I could talk about this for hours because it's a very passionate thing close to my heart.
Right, yeah.
For me, I just think for too long, politics, religion even, they've dominated people's lives, and I just think there's a life outside of them. They shouldn't. You know, we live in communities under austerity measures. We're being told every day that this is being cut and that's being cut. Ultimately, I just think sometimes people are just got to rise in a good way and look after themselves, really. Locality, fed up of relying on people. There's promises made quarterly, you know, and they never really come to fruition. So I just want people to stand up and say, well, hang fire, I've got a big enough mouth. I'm willing to step out of the shadows then, if you like.
So is it a political party then?
We're not actually, I would say. I'd like to think we're apolitical. We have to take part in the political process to get where we want to go, if you know what I mean. That is done and dusted. We have to do that. There's processes that we have to be electoral commission rated to even take part in the processes of local authorities, which will have various committees and whatnot. I don't know whether you knew this, but independent on their own councillors are not obliged or not allowed on them committees. So, so if for example, if myself, Chris and Andrew, if we want to speak up on issues and partake in the process for our residents, we have to be on them various committees within any local authority. And to do that, we had to set up a party. The Newport Independent Party could have been named another party, but we just like the ring of it.
So what is the main aim apart from rising against the current council or whatever? Because we need a council, we need some sort of...
Of course you do. I mean, rising is probably a bit revolutionary type word, which I wouldn't particularly use.
I was thinking that, yeah.
What I'm saying is that we want to be more involved in the process rather than being directed and told what to do in our everyday lives. I mean, ultimately, their decisions affect us, absolutely. So what we're saying is, let's do it. Let's empower people rather than just go through this 4-yearly process of political parties promising much, delivering little.
I think Kevin's right, Gareth. I know Kevin's right. He's, I mean, you've got this constant to and fro-ing, haven't you? You know, sort of Labour bash Tory, Tory bash Labour. You know, I think Matt Evans is a great guy. You know, the leader of the Tories. I think Debbie Wilcox has got her heart in the right place. But it's all a game. Right. You know, it's this sort of constant bashing each other. It's all a game, you know, and I've seen the game for the last 5 years. And if you speak up, if you dare to speak up for your residents, for your neighbours, you get stamped on. Let me tell you, you know, I've been not a victim, you know, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. So what we're advocating is a future free from narrow party politics, you know, and I think the main thing your listeners need to know is that if you stand for a political party, a mainstream political party, you sign a contract. You sign a contract primarily to support your party. Right. So you're whipped, you make a group decision, and you have to go along with that, you know.
Okay.
We're not going to whip anybody. Our councillors, when they get elected, will represent the neighbours that they live with in the wards that they represent, and that's, you know, I'm not ashamed to say, you know, we want to shake up. It's a cosy club, you know. Everybody's going to do this, everybody's going to do that. Suddenly, there's bucket bucketfuls of money now the current administration is spending, all that will disappear after the election and we're back to the game, We want to shake up that cosy club. Because it is, I mean, we've had, in the last year, Kevin, we've had our council meeting cancelled because there was nothing to discuss. Nothing to discuss.
There's always something.
We've got people living in tents on our streets, in Newport, Of course there's something to discuss. And we want to give, these people, and call it vulgar, but we want to give them a good kick up the bottom, And so they know, well, yeah, we're going to say something else. But how dare they say there's nothing to discuss, I mean, the Newport is wonderful, and for many, many years, Kevin, I and Andrew have supported the city as much as we possibly can. But, how dare them say there's nothing to discuss, And we want to open it all up, and we want to, and, people say that it's cliches, and when we're not publishing a manifesto, we're publishing a vision for the city. And part of that, the mainstay of that is involving people, and giving the civic centre is literally 5 minutes walk from the city centre.
Yeah.
Yeah. From any part of Newport, you can get to the city, to the Civic in about 15, 20 minutes maximum. Yeah. Anybody would think the Civic Centre was based on the moon. Because it's so disconnected from the people.
Yeah.
And it's wrong, it's wrong,
Yeah.
So when you get the leaflets through the door, beware of some of the, as I'm saying, fake news that's going out, you know what I mean? And, let's try it, let's give power to the people that are out there, to the communities,
Your city, your sound. Newport City Radio.
Certainly is. Time is our biggest enemy, especially today. We've only got 7 minutes left, so we're going to have to say goodbye, guys. Sorry. But what you said was very informative and very exciting, actually, and I hope a lot of people in Newport are listening, and not just Newport, people who think maybe we've got an independent party and they don't realise. Is there anything you want to say to everyone out there before we leave?
For me, parties, whatnot, they play a game, and for me it's not a game, this is real life. And for me, if I was to reach out and ask people to trust people, I guess I would say trust those in your communities, because our art is in it, we really mean it, and with us, let us make some history, and then maybe you can judge us. But my hand is on my heart as I speak to you, Gareth, you can see it. I mean what I say. I don't promise what I won't do. And I think that's really important, sound bites and stuff. We're not into that, we're into reality. We talk the language of our communities. For example, Deborah Wilcox is a very intelligent woman. I'd never disrespect anybody, and that's never been my intention. But she's a very good orator, and quite a few at the Civic Centre are. But if you was to ask me, really, if they came on Bettis, they might as well be talking Somalian, because we don't understand their language. They understand ours. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean, yeah.
We talk the language of our communities, and that's what it's all about. I want to bang the drum for my communities, and nobody's going to hear it louder.
Kevin summed up perfectly, and just 3 points basically. Whoever you vote for, remember to vote. Genuinely to stand for election is, whether it's a community council or a city council, takes a lot. You're entering into an unknown sometimes, and it takes a lot. And I'm sure all these people are good people, and I'd like to wish every candidate the best of luck. Because I think that's important, genuinely, and well done for having the courage to stand up for whatever you may believe in. And in the words of the Style Council song that you've just played, if you've seen all that's on offer and you're not impressed at all, shout to the top and vote independent.
Okay.
I mean, I've got very little to add to that, but I think the most important sentence that we've heard tonight has come from the mouth of our leader, Kevin Whitehead, who said, "We talk for communities," and that's really what the Newport Independent Party is all about. We talk for communities, the left behind. The 14-year-old who may have been excluded from school, who might want to join a boxing club, for example, who has been branded a feral, antisocial youth. We want to reach out to him and help him, maybe talk to his parents, engage with them, help the elderly who might be lonely and bored at home, get them out for some, social intercourse. So we talk for communities, and I think that's the mantra that is so important to us and underpins our philosophy.
One more thing, Gareth, before we go.
Go on then, Gareth.
Thank you ever so much for inviting us along. It's been great, because I'm a man of few words. On top of that, I'd just like to say, God bless our own Newport Independent Party candidates. stood up to be counted. I mean, like I do say to the guys, it's actually not as daunting as you would. I mean, it might have been made to look daunting by people who don't want you to affect what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I can tell them it's not, and the senior members within our group will be there to guide you, because honestly, I've got massive respect for all the guys that have come forward and said, you know what, Andrew, Chris, Kev, I want to stand for you because I believe in what you're saying. I love my community. And with that, I suppose it's a good night from us.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Gareth.
There are a lot of independents running. Yeah. Blackwood, Caerphilly, Blaenau Gwent, and they're passionate people. And I term that, if there can be such a thing as a good disease, I hope, that is spreading, you know.
Are any of them successful? That's the question.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked that. It sounds like question time now. Good question, Gareth. I'm glad you asked that. I'm waiting for the exact figures, but okay. As independent councillors, we're part of, because people say, oh, there's no such thing as independent councillors. I went to a meeting last week of the independent group of week before last, I tell a lie, of the local government association independent group, you know. I mean, there are literally up and down the country, Wales and England, you know, hundreds of independent groups. I'm waiting for the exact figure because they're collating the information for us, because that's a very, very good question and we'll be asked it again. And, you know, in many areas, independents hold the balance of power, you know. And, so, you know, it's something new. But that apathy that you've talked about, you know what? I've got a sneaky feeling that the Cozy Club, they rather like the fact that people get confused and decide not to vote. Yeah. Because they know they're going to get their 1,000 votes to them, and their 1,000 votes to them, so they've only got to talk, you know, there's that 500, 200 swing, you know. Yeah. And I think it kind of suits them, doesn't it? That, you know, there's a bit of apathy, the confusion, the noise, you know. Well, we want to cut through that static, you know, and sort of say, yeah, please, vote Labour, vote Conservative, UKIP if you want, you know, applied good people, but make sure, you know, that you vote, please, Gareth, okay?
I suppose an independence party is quite good because I like bits of everyone's policies, but not everything they do. Yeah. And I suppose you can't like everything.
I think what Kevin and Chris has really brought home tonight, and very passionately, to be fair to them, is what they've done for their community. I mean, I was a Conservative, but I actually voted for Chris in the last local election in 2012 because I thought at a local level it wasn't about party ideology, it was about what somebody was actually physically doing in the community of Rogerstone. So it's the first time I've ever voted Labour, and I voted Labour for Chris because I knew the very, very diligent, the hard work he'd put in on a number of different fronts and projects. And Kevin, obviously, he's the authentic voice of Betis. I don't want to cause him any embarrassment, but he is. People turn to Kevin, you know, when they're in need, and he's working like Chris into the early hours. They're up at the crack of dawn. They answer emails. They don't ignore emails. It's not all about election cycles. For them, it's a 24-hour rolling service that they provide, and it's a sterling service that they provide, which is very difficult. At times, they've got to deal with very complex issues, which they deal with in a very sensitive, understanding way, and they always follow it up. It's not a case of paying lip service at election time. Yes, Mrs. Jones will get the grass cut or the overhanging tree. Actually, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to contact the council. I'm going to lobby them, and I'm going to help you.
Teach them how to fish.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you know, but the different skill sets that we can bring together for the community, that's what really attracted me to the Independent Party. Free of ideology, but helping people with different skill sets and working hard for the community. And bringing the communities back in Newport will bring Newport back. We're a great whole. The sum of the parts has got to be, you know, we want the whole of Newport to be as one, whether it's Maze Glass, whether it's Ringland. It sounds very idealistic, but with hard work and ideas and initiatives and drive, we can do it. I think there's a mood for change, isn't there? I mean, I think, you know, if you look at Brexit, if you look at what's happening in America, there's a general mood for change. But I think what Chris and Kevin have mentioned, which I think is very important, is that we will work with people who are talented people and who've got ideas, whatever their political colour is. So it's not a case of us being a little cabal and us in a little bubble where we literally just want to trot out our views. If somebody from Labour's got a good idea, or if somebody from Conservative's got a good idea, I think we'll embrace it and work with them. And I think that's very important, a consensus that's born of the idea as opposed to political ideology and scoring points. And I think that's the malaise that is in the Cozy Club at the moment.
This is true. I mean, it's like one of the things, I'll let you in on something now, Gareth. Have you ever been to a full council meeting?
No.
I mean, you're a great young guy, talented, you know, and you've never felt the interest to go. And that's not a criticism of you. It's because it's all state managed. It's nonsense. It's all stage managed. They know the vote before you go in there.
Right.
Because they, 9 times out of 10 people are whipped into particular positions. It's all stage managed. So I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell one thing that we're going to put in our vision, okay? And I challenge the other parties to include this. They can have the idea. I said we had a few ideas. They can have this one. It's going to be in our vision, which has been formed by people.
Okay.
This was one that came up again and again and again. Why don't we allow public questions at full council?
Brilliant.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so if there's an issue that's annoying you, jolly well get up and tell these councillors exactly what that issue is, Why are we frightened of that?
You see it in sort of towns in America, counties, where they meet up at the hall every week or something, and they have a discussion.
So I challenge, the mainstream parties, because we're not a mainstream party. I challenge them. They seem to like our ideas. I said, when we open a bag of crisps, they seem to be, copying a couple of days later, which is, great, But if they need ideas, there's an idea. Put it in your manifesto. I challenge you. Public questions at full council.
I think people would like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lynch mob mentality. I mean, that sort of forum can be in a measured way with a chairman and, obviously questions that can be put beforehand and a debate. Interestingly, I've called out Labour and Conservatives during the course of this election on social media to a debate in the Riverfront where we can scrutinise and look at the Labour record over the last 5 years and look at their philosophy for the next 5 years and what ideas they've got that are going to underpin what they hope to be their period in power. And do you know what? They're not interested in engaging with us at all, which I think is completely gutless.
That's another problem. There's no debate these days.
No.
You're either really left or really right.
That's right.
And there's no middle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah,
we'll have some
shouting down the other side.
We'll have. I wouldn't say get nasty, but I would imagine we'll probably be swatted off or attempted to. And I mean, and I would say bring it on. At the end of the day, it's through that attitude that people like us where we are, because ultimately you do that to people like what's been happening across communities. You have to remember. I'll give you a nice little example of Bettis. I have to go back to Bettis because it's my ward. So let's just say, for example, I'm sat where I am because a Labour council shut down our boxing club, put 55 crying children on the street. Absolute heartbreaking. So I kind of got press gang from that moment. And I just remember thinking, well, the mother's saying, take them on, Kevin, we can't have this. And I'm sat here now because I'm glad I did. But you have to remember, I don't go into anything half-hearted. I did my own work, and I just remember reading the Welsh Government, their own policy, their older brother, Labour. And I just remember thinking that they were encouraging actively local authorities to let residents take ownership of giving up assets. So I saw that as an opportunity for us to get these 55 kids who were put onto the street from the boxing club, along with over 120 children from a shut-down youth club on the estate also, which they demolished. And bearing in mind our antisocial figures and everything went up from that. I mean, and if you can't see that, if you can't see there's there's an effect.
Yeah.
So obviously I went through that route, which the WAG encouraged me to do. So I approached my local authority on numerous occasions, and I said, listen, can we do what is their directive? No. I climb over one wall and now there's another higher wall. Everything seemed to be barriers everywhere. And then the next thing, as is bound to happen, there's the planning housing development on there. And I just keep thinking, my cynical eye keeps telling me, well, you can't just rip apart infrastructure, plan and build on it, and leave nothing left. We're being squeezed. You can only put so much water in a glass, and when it becomes full, it starts overflowing.
Yeah, and a lot of this is about people get accused of having egos and so on, but there's a lot of this is about people's egos. So they're fighting, so there's an election, so let's have a fight, who can distribute the most leaflets, who can, Chris is a demon, Kevin is whatever, and
whatever motivates them.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Think about all the energy that we're wasting there, we're expanding there. There are real people out there, people outside now, outside your window, your kids, 16, 17, perhaps being demonised, they're not, they're perhaps not doing the right thing, but once we're living in that sort of little game, that bubble, that cosy club, once every 4 or 5 years, little scrap, there are people actually really fighting. There are people fighting with decreasing wages, to stick a meal on the table. There's nothing wrong with this, worrying if they can afford sort of the dance class for the kids, putting a bit of money by for Christmas, ending up in places like perhaps Bright House and so on, And these people are real fighters, you know, and the little game that we play in our little bubble, you know, I've had enough of that.
Exactly, yeah, you've got to consider the real people.
These are the people that are really fighting, and Kevin particularly represents that, you know, and it's real, isn't it? It's real, you know. So yeah, you know, we'll have a little scrap with somebody if they want. I'd rather not, you know. Yeah. It's but you know, let's think about the people that are really fighting. You know, just normal people going about their business, you know, and a few dreams. What's wrong with having a few dreams, you know? And what's wrong with having a city that we can all be proud of and get away from this ridiculous cycle? I mean, I'm sure within the next week or so, there'll suddenly be from the money tree. I'm sure there's a money tree growing just by Icross, just as you go up to Rogerstone, apparently. Yeah, you know, no, seriously. So this magic money tree, just a couple of weeks before an election, will suddenly bloom, and these £50 notes will fall off it, and there will be these great bags of money that will be spent for this, that, and the other.
Campaigning.
Nothing to do with the fact that there's an election a couple of days away, mind. Don't worry about it. Absolutely nothing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, far better to be listening to people and working with people, spending the money in a sustainable way over a period of time, you know. And we need to reform our council as well. You know, we can no longer afford this ancient structure, you know. Chief execs, I mean, good people, I assume, you know. I don't know them that well personally, but, you know, chief execs on enormous salaries. If that was, somebody said the other night, if this was a business, what would you do? Well, if it was a business, you'd streamline. You can no longer afford it. And we've come to the point where we're cutting a particular sector in education to the tune of 40 odd grand for kids that are troubled, that have been excluded from school. We're cutting that. And it is a cut. It's a cut, yeah? But we're still maintaining those ancient structures. These people, you know, you can't afford it anymore. And when you're faced with that choice, I know what choice I would make, you know. Let's not write off our kids. Somebody sent Andrew a bogus email pretending to be somebody inquiring after something. I think we're a bit dull, you know. Right. I want to vote for you, Andrew, but I'd like to ask you these questions.
Right,
you know?
Yeah.
Andrew is a solicitor, fights for people on a daily basis, you know, and they ask, well, what do you think about giving people second? I want people to have a second, third, fourth, fifth chance, you know. But effectively now, we're writing off kids at 12, 13, because, you know, you'll see all the leaflets with, we're fighting antisocial behaviour. Nonsense. When these kids are not going to school, where are they going to be? Where are they going to be, Gareth? They're going to be outside the market. They're going to be wandering around Ringland, perhaps Rogerstone, wherever, because they're not going to school. That's why the classes are there. Yeah. So you're fighting antisocial behaviour. Wow, bully for you, you know. You're not, you know, because you voted for that cut. And how dare you? How dare they criticise me for voting against that? You know, I'm proud to have voted against it. And as I said in that meeting, what they need to do, they've been lazy. They haven't reformed. They've maintained the ancient structures, you know. So they made their bed, they better lie in it. And I hope the people of Newport sort of wake up to them, you know?
It's ridiculous. Populism seems to be the mantra of the defeated. It's happened obviously with Trump. You had the Brexit. I mean, things like that. It doesn't, you know, with us guys, it doesn't mean to say whether you agree with either or. But obviously something is in the water. Because you have to remember, I'm hearing things like now on betters in particular. I mean, there used to be a saying when I was young. My mother used to say, "You can tell it's Christmas." The binmen have started to say "Good morning," but it's a little bit like that. Exactly. Now we become me, and people now, without any nudging, are saying the same things. Here we go. It must be an election coming up. There's people wearing red rosettes on the estate. Who are you? The first thing I would encourage people to say is, somebody knocks your door, a cold calls you, wearing a rosette and promising you stuff. The first thing you need to ask them, who are they? And the second thing you need to ask him, what have you done the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's true. That's quite funny. I'll tell you a quick joke. Andrew and I went to the local pub the other night and we opened a bag of crisps. The next day, there were 10 party supporters from another party sort of in there opening a bag of crisps. You know? they're quite literally, I mean, if they want ideas, just ask, you know.
Right, yeah.
But no, I mean, Andrew makes a very, very good point. And we've been called everything, as I said. We've been called sort of left by the right by the left. You know, what we've got is people are fed up with those old sort of tags. We've got Labour supporters. I'm centre left, you know, economically sort of right, but centre left. Andrew is a former Conservative supporter. We've got an ex-Green who was a parliamentary candidate. We've got some previous Liberals, you know. So we've attracted from and people that have never been interested in politics before have come forward, and that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. But we're very much in our infancy. In the space of 6 months, Kevin came to my rescue and said, "Mate, you need a friend. Come and join us." And it was probably one of the best things that happened to me. Andrew was there for me. We chatted over a cup of coffee and we came up with this idea, but informed by what people wanted. It wasn't our ego trips or any such thing. It was what people were saying to us.
It's not like a revenge thing. It's let's make a difference thing.
Listen, as I said, there are some great, honestly, really, really good, Labour councillors. People that I'm proud to know. I would name them, but for the risk of if I name them, they'll probably be kicked out of the party. But there are some really, really good Labour councillors. There are some excellent Conservative councillors. The one Lib Dem at the moment, Carmela, a great lady,
She's
conscientious, works hard and a very, very nice person. But broadly speaking, those models are gone. People don't identify with those traditional models, and that's the problems the party have nationally at the moment. That's why Labour is so low in the polls. And
on top of that as well, you have to remember people like myself. I mean, you notice I'm wearing my rugby kit tonight. I've been a coach and a rugby player most of my life. It's dominated my life. I've helped with boxing and stuff. And I just think that people from within a community, people like myself, ultimately, who kind of get friendly press ganged. And it says a lot that there's a brooding community, a feeling left behind. And sometimes it just takes somebody to say, "Listen, Kevin, you've got the loudest mouth of us all."
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what you are. You're not... This is not an autocratic thing that we're doing. You have to remember our core values are very important to us. We mentioned the whip. For us as a party group, we don't use terminology like I and me. It'll always be we, our, us. And that's how it should be. Because you are ultimately a mouthpiece, the biggest, loudest mouth for your community. And the community individually, should our guys get elected, that is their heartbeat. Everything that they do is for the communities. And then when we come together, I like the mantra, the fact is, the heartbeat is community. We work our socks off for our residents. When we come together to take part in the process, we share this vision for the city to make the city council a better run administration. Because Andrew alluded to earlier on again, and I just think it's absolutely spot on. Why have we not, for example, Labour in Newport, local authorities across Wales? Where are your proven and tested businessmen, successful businessmen on consultancy type roles to guide councils?
Not paid for.
You're being trusted with millions of pounds of monies, of people's monies, and you have to administer that in an honest way, and it should be non-political. So you shouldn't be favouring things, mentioning no names. I remember I had a conversation with a guy quite a while back, and I got it immediately. Now, bearing in mind, we as a group are fully also, on top of this, supportive of anything that stands out. For us at the moment, we're loving the David Bomber Pierce statue appeal. We love it. This guy was a legend. Our only ever outright Lonsdale belt winner, British heavyweight champion, died tragically young. And we'll back that. I remember having to work so hard with a cabinet member, with the devoted nephew, Luke Pierce, who's an absolute diamond of a boy, and he wants his uncle's legacy like we all do. We just got the game, if you like, in a meeting. We just woke up to the game. And it just seems to me that people in these positions, like a cabinet member has a very important portfolio, and they have to administer it with a total honesty. But for me, we came out of a meeting, all we were asking for was a place to put it. We're funding it. We're working hard to raise funds. Andrew Collingbourne, people like Luke, Joanne Brandy, people like these legends in what they're doing to raise this money from, because we think it's a fantastic thing for Newport. But we got it at that meeting that should we have been speaking to a cabinet member with a personal like, we'd have got supported. And it's quite simplistic, mind, but it's true. And I won't even mention the Newport ship, because if I had my way, that Newport ship would be dried out and given for firewood on Bettis. No, I'm not a Philistine. That was only a joke, by the way, guy. But you know what I'm saying? If it's a passion, it shouldn't be. If it's a passion for the community, it should be a passion for the cabinet member. It shouldn't be just something that's good if it's just only a passion for the cabinet member. That's my point.
You asked why sort of left Labour. I didn't leave Labour. They kicked me out.
Right, okay.
I've never been in Labour.
I heard rumours.
So let's get that. Let's get that right. No, and to be frank, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right, okay.
I'd been a member of the Labour Party since I was 16. Seriously, I campaigned as a youth. not much older than you, Gareth, or Michael Foot, you know,
Flynn.
Neil Kinnock, telephone cameras and so on, and knock doors for all of them. And, you know, they're not bad people. Of course they're not. There are good people in Labour. There are good people in the Conservatives. Jane Mudd, for example, from Albus, is a good person, you know, a very, very, very good person. But I got kicked out, and, you know, it's a matter of record, and before anybody says, you know, whatever, I've got all the emails. You know, because that's one of the things. I got kicked out for asking questions, for challenging the status quo. I was called to the Whip's office nearly every other week. I challenged a sale of a piece of land. I had residents sending me questions, and I was putting them to the cabinet member, and the cabinet member at the time didn't like it. So she complained to the Whip. They were also a bit irritated by the fact that I supported the traders when the buses were withdrawn from the high street, you know. That's how I got to know Andrew. Do I regret doing that? No, of course not, you know. Do I wish that I was wrong? Yeah, I wish that I was wrong. I wish that when the buses were removed, that traders continued and things were buoyant. You know, you know for a fact, it nearly killed the market.
Yeah,
you know,
I saw it.
It nearly killed it. You know that for a fact. So, am I proud that I stood up? Gosh, it caused me, and it still causes me some pain. You know, I mean, I've got people that I consider to be friends that now sort of vilify me, and you know, that's absolute nonsense. I still like these people. You know, I mean, can I dislike somebody because I'm no longer in the same party of them? And I think that's fundamentally now, with the current leadership, the problem with Labour. It's become a cult.
Right.
You know, it's like one of these sort of dodgy sort of American cults, you know. If you don't believe in every single thing, you're vilified and sort of ostracized, you know. And and people are fed up with that. It's a game. It's the cozy club, you know. And we need to reconnect with people. And if it's populism, you know, well, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of representing people's voices, because that's the sort of it's populism. You know, you're just doing, well, I tell you what, you know, some of the people that say that, some of the cabinet members that might be listening saying that, get out of your house that isn't in the ward that you live. Go and visit, not just at election time, where you are,
exactly,
you know, and talk to the people that you're supposed to be representing.
They've got to ask why you're popular. It's because you go out there and knock doors, and you're known because you make yourself known, you make the effort, you know. Yeah. You can only do so much through a screen.
I mean, people want change, don't they, in Newport? They've literally had enough, haven't they? In a business context, you know, I did meet Chris with the bus issue in the market. I was watching businesses literally go down the pan, because when the buses stopped going through the middle of Newport, the pedestrian traffic were not going into the market, which obviously cut off a lot of their economic profit. And as such, it was heartbreaking actually seeing market traders who I've known for like 20 plus years really down on their luck. Some unfortunately have now gone altogether, and the Cozy Club failed to comprehend completely what was going on. At the time, I offered a forum at Tredegar House. I offered to pay for it, for the chief executive then to meet me together with Paul Flynn to look at the issues, to crystallise them, to try and come up with a business model to help them. I was ignored. The chief executive was too busy. Paul Flynn ignored me altogether. And I think that really incorporates and encapsulates the malaise that this council has shown, this Cozy Club, who are just obsessed with their own agendas, who can't see farther from their nose in terms of helping businesses, helping people. And if you spread that out through the communities of Newport, that is the problem we've got. We've got a candidate or two candidates standing in Ringland, and I haven't been to Ringland for a while. And looking at the pictures that he's put up and the problems that the Ringland estate has gone, it's clearly forgotten. They're the left behind. And it's not a corny, glib statement. It's very true. They are the left behind. There are youths there with nowhere to go. There's old age pensioners afraid to leave their houses. And that's what we need to address, to come up with a radical formula for these people to go to places, for the old age pensioners to feel safe on the streets, and for the youngsters not to be categorised as a feral mob, but to find somewhere, an outlet for them, whether it's a boxing club, a football club. We want to bring Newport back to the people, back to the communities, and we're very, very passionate, as you can gather from what Kevin and Chris have said today. And I was a Conservative, but I had enough of the Conservative Party, I had enough of Theresa May in an ivory tower with no concept of what's going on at the coalface. No idea of the thin blue line that we've got with the police force around here, of NHS workers who I represent who are very upset with long hours and little gratitude. So essentially that's why I migrated towards the independents.
People are doing some wonderful things at the moment. They're cleaning up dog poo. They're sort of organising community events. Nothing to do with the fact that there's an election happening, Let's keep those things going. Let's empower people to do things themselves and facilitate things for people, rather than control everything, And, let's do things about the issues that are concerning people. And the things that concern people, they know best, Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you one of the things that's in our vision, but it's a working document. We've had literally thousands, because we opened up our vision. One of our opponents posted that they've been consulting on their manifesto for 6 months to party members.
Right.
Well, we haven't done that. We've consulted with the people. And I think that's a far better way to do things,
So you've actually spoken to the public.
Yeah, we've gone out, we've asked them to sort of direct message us and so on, ideas, and that's how we formulated the vision. I think that's far better. I don't care if somebody's Plaid, Labour, Tory. If they've got a good idea, let's embrace it. Your ideas matter.
I can see what you mean by rising against it then, in a formal way.
Yeah. Anyway, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the passion from these two guys. Obviously, they're both established councillors. I'm very much a political virgin in that context, because I'm not elected yet. If I am elected in Rogerstone, then I will go along with the ideology that these two have oozed tonight. It's all about community for us. It's all about listening to people, finding out what they want, what their aspirations are, and not being stymied by what political parties dictate in communities. It's all about us being one community. That's our hashtag, and it's such an important part of our basic political philosophy that we embrace different skill sets that go into a community. I'm a solicitor, for example. I can go and help people with benefits forms, PIP issues. We've done legal clinics in food banks. We've gone to the people, we've gone to the grassroots, and we've gone to help them. We haven't postured. We haven't talked down to them. All we've done is engage with them and try and assist them. And these two guys, and Janet Cleverly, who's already an independent councillor in the Civic Centre, have fought the basic cause for people at a grassroots level, as opposed to other parties who've basically postured and have gone along with a party mandate and a party line. That's the one thing that encapsulates and underpins the basis of the independent party, which is our ability to act independently and to help people for what matters to them.
Do you feel like councils don't think for themselves then? Do you think they just stick with whatever the sort of Tory or whatever party is?
They say there's a party line, there's national. I mean, so it's handed down, things are handed down. I mean, let's not forget that voting itself is handed down. I mean, obviously, if you're going to talk politics, which I do understand fully politics, I was fairly political, and for years and years and years, you could probably term me as a moderate Labour, slightly to the left. So I'm a working man. So, but what I'm saying to you, I remember one MP and an AM have asked me, Kevin, why did you leave Labour? I said, can I just stop you there? I didn't leave Labour. Labour left me. That's just to give you, I wasn't happy with where they were going. And then, and the whipping stuff, as Chris alluded to earlier, for me, I can never marry myself to the fact that, for example, and I always use this as an example, people will still, because Nan, Dad, Auntie Jean, they voted Labour, so it's defaulted, handed down. You must vote Labour, they're the working class party, the nasty Tories are the rich. No, stop it. It's actually encouraged that.
I've definitely been told that, yeah.
To keep it controlled. And for me, if you want to talk, for us on Betis, we have two independent councillors who Newport Independent Group, which is historic in itself. We formed, myself and Noel Trigg, an absolute diamond of a man. And let's just say, for example, on Betis, this is how it works. We have two independents and we have a Labour councillor. So come budget time and whatnot, as I did last week, I spoke up quite vociferously because I represented the views of my residents, and this is what I believe we should be doing. So after consulting with my residents, and I'm saying, listen, there's education cuts, and there will be the council tax rise. My residents, what do you think? And your residents will say, we don't want it, Kevin. So for me then, that is your job. When you go into the Civic Centre and they have the formal process, you should then stand on behalf and be the voice of your residents and say, my residents don't want the council tax rise, and we vote as the voice of our residents. Now, bearing in mind, when this is going on, opposite us will have a fellow Betis elected resident,
right,
defying democracy by voting for it against the residents who want it. I can never get my head around that, and this, unfortunately, is what happens when you're whipped. You're whipped against your own residents, and I think it's a paradox, totally undemocratic. And as Chris said, It's an amazing, when you sign up for the Labour Party, you have a 12-page document stating that your loyalty is to the Red Rose and the Labour Party. Excuse me, my loyalty is to the hard-working residents of my ward, and it always will be, 100%.
What changed in Labour then that made you not want to be with them anymore?
Well, for me, you have to remember this. You had 13 years of Tony Blair for a start. I mean, because everything they say is led nationally. I mean, even excuses this end at local authority level, they blame. There's so many tiers of governance, isn't there?
Right, yeah.
You have local authority, then you have the Welsh Government, then you have the Tories, and I just find it quite amusing, actually, that when they're rolling out austerity measures in the Civic Centre, for example, for Newport, they don't ever blame the Welsh Government. They leapfrog and they go straight to Westminster and like hang fire. Why are you not lobbying, I call him the older brother, why are you not lobbying the very expensive setup in the Senate that we have? It's massive. People just don't realise the cost of that. I mean, the average AM, for example, is on £60,000 a year.
Right.
And they wanted to push this to 80. So you have to go figure there. People like Harwin James are on over 100k, well over 100k a year. So you can imagine the expenditure. I mean, and ultimately, this is foisted downwards. They do say manure travels downhill. I could have used a different word. But it literally does. It literally does.
Yeah.
So why do they leapfrog at the Welsh Government, for example, when we've been Labour-dominated for 17 years?
Exactly.
And what I love about us on Betis in particular, if I'm going to be a bit selfish, Betis is the largest social housing estate in Wales. It's probably number 4 in Europe. I know you think about that, Europe as a continent.
Yeah.
I think we were number 1 or 2 once, but there was an estate built in France, Germany, and Greater London combined 2 areas. But when you think an estate in Wales, largest social housing estate in Wales, Labour can't take. I think it's fantastic that they've dominated the whole of Wales.
Yeah.
It's a nice little story in there. So yeah, very proud.